The daylight spilled softly across the busy streets of Accra as the camera slowly zoomed toward a young woman named Amma. A beautiful black African woman in her mid-20s, wearing a modern fitted blouse, high-waist jeans, and a calm but distant look in her eyes. Soft ambient music plays, then fades into suspenseful low bass. Amma walked like someone carrying a quiet storm inside her, every step graceful yet heavy. The first 60 seconds open with a cinematic slow-motion shot of Amma lifting her shirt slightly to adjust her waist beads, thin, colorful African beads wrapped carefully around her waist. But something about them didn't feel like decoration today. They felt like a secret she didn't want anyone to see. Voiceover, soft, tense. Some truths hide in silence, but others hide in the smallest things we wear. Camera close-up on the beads. They were beautiful gold, blue, and emerald, but her fingers trembled as she touched them. Because these beads weren't hers. They were a gift from someone she could never speak about. And today, their meaning was about to change her entire life. Amma's best friend, Senna, tall, stylish, dressed in a modern cream blazer, approached her with concern, tightening her face. "Amma, you look distracted," she said, her voice low, real, concerned. Amma forced a smile, the kind people use when they don't want to explain their pain. "I'm fine," she whispered, but the voiceover added, she wasn't fine. Not even close. The two friends walked through the modern market square, filled with the sounds of vendors, laughter and life, but Amma's mind was far away, locked on something she feared would break her heart. Music shifts to a low, haunting piano. Suddenly, from the corner of her eyes, she saw someone she never wanted to see again. The camera zooms in sharply on a tall man in a navy blue shirt, clean-cut, confident, and dangerous. His name was Kwame. The moment Amma saw him, her entire body tensed. Senna noticed immediately. "Amma, who is that? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" Amma swallowed hard, her heart beating too loudly for her to answer. The voiceover whispered, because she had indeed seen a ghost. A ghost from her past. Kwame began walking toward them, each step slow but deliberate. Amma's breathing shook. She pulled her blouse down slightly, covering her waist beads more tightly. But Kwame's eyes went straight to her waist, like he remembered something she desperately wanted to forget. His voice was smooth but cold. "Amma." Long time. The air tightened. Senna stepped protectively in front of Amma. "Do you two know each other?" she asked, her tone suspicious. Amma didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. Kwame smirked and leaned slightly forward. "Still wearing the beads I gave you?" The words were like a blade. Senna froze. Amma's face drained of color. She whispered, "Please, don't do this here." But Kwame wasn't here for kindness. He stared straight at her waist again. "If you're still wearing those beads, then you haven't told anyone the truth." The music hit a quiet, shaking note, a sound that hinted at danger and revelation. The scene cuts to Amma's home, that evening modern apartment, soft daylight fading into warm orange. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands gripping the beads around her waist. The voiceover. Those beads weren't bought. They were a symbol of a promise she had broken, and a truth she had buried. A flashback begins 2 years earlier. Young Amma, laughing, carefree, standing at the beach wearing a flowing modern dress. Kwame standing beside her, handsome but with a charm that carried shadows. He tied the beads around her waist himself, saying, "As long as these beads stay on you, Amma, you belong with me." Flashback ends abruptly with Amma pulling the beads away from her skin as if they burn. Present day, Amma whispered, "I don't belong to you anymore." But her voice broke as she said it. Because she knew Kwame wasn't here for love, he was here for something else. Something she feared even more. Have you ever hidden a truth that could change everything if revealed? Tell us in the comments, what would you do if a secret from your past suddenly came back to confront you? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see how Amma's story unfolds and to catch more real-life, heart-touching stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The scene returns to modern time. Senna sits beside Amma on the bed. "Amma, tell me the truth. What do these beads mean? Why does that man know you like that?" Amma's eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. "These beads, they reveal something about me that no one knows. Not even my family." Senna reached for her hand. "Amma, you're shaking." Amma inhaled slowly. "Because if people know what these beads mean, my life will never be the same." Camera zoom in. Music shifts into a tense heartbeat-like rhythm. Senna waited, the room silent. Amma finally said it. These beads were given to me as a sign of a bond. A bond I never chose. A bond I've been trying to escape. Senna's eyes widened. Amma, what bond? Amma opened her mouth to answer, but her phone rang sharply, interrupting the moment. The caller ID made her freeze completely. Again. Senna grabbed the phone. Amma, he's not done with you. What does he want? Amma whispered. He wants what these beads represent. The camera zooms again on her waist, the beads glimmering under the light. But I can't give it to him. Because it's something I no longer have. Senna stared at her in confusion. Amma, what are you hiding? Amma exhaled deeply, the truth burning inside her. These beads reveal a secret about my past. A secret Quaim thinks he still controls. But if the truth comes out now, he will destroy me. Soft African flute begins under a tense bass note. A knock on the door. Slow. Heavy. The kind that freezes blood. Amma and Senna looked at each other, fear crawling across their faces. Senna whispered, Amma, please tell me that's not. Amma stood up slowly, her hands shaking as she touched the beads again. It's him. He's here. The camera pulls back, slow motion, as the knocking gets louder. Amma steps toward the door, knowing that the moment she opens it, the truth hidden behind her waist beads will no longer be a secret. Amma stood frozen as the knocking continued, each knock heavier than the last, vibrating through the walls of her apartment like a warning from something she had tried to outrun for years. Senna moved slowly toward her, her modern beige blouse rustling gently as she whispered, Amma. You don't have to open that door, but Amma knew running would no longer protect her. The truth behind her waist beads was no longer just a memory. It was a storm now bursting through the present. Camera pans in tight on her trembling fingers. She reached for the doorknob, and as she opened the door, the daylight from the hallway spilled across her face, highlighting the fear hiding behind her calm expression. There stood Quaim, wearing a crisp, dark green shirt and a heavy stare, the kind that carried history and unfinished battles. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside slowly, his voice quiet but intimidating. Amma, we need to talk. Senna immediately moved between them, protective and unafraid. You don't decide anything here, she said firmly. But Quaim's eyes were not even on Senna, they were locked on Amma's waist, as if the beads were speaking louder than anything else in the room. Amma stepped back, folding her arms, covering the beads under her modern fitted top. Quaim, whatever you think those beads mean, that chapter is done. Quaim shook his head slowly. Amma, you know it's not done. You know what those beads symbolize. You know what you promised the day I tied them on you. Amma's face tightened. The music under the scene shifted into a low, slow, tense hum. Senna looked at Amma, confusion thick in her eyes. Amma, what promise? A long, silent moment passed. The weight of her past rose into her throat like a knot she could no longer swallow. She took a shaking breath. These beads were a symbol of something I was forced into. Not love, not partnership, but a responsibility. Quaim's jaw clenched. You weren't forced. You agreed. Amma lifted her chin, tears burning beneath her eyes. Quaim, I was young. I was scared, you knew that. You used that. The tension in the room grew tighter than the air itself. Camera close-up on the beads glowing faintly under the room's warm lighting. Senna whispered, Amma, what responsibility? Amma finally opened the door to her truth, 2 years ago. Quaim and I were part of a cultural mentorship program. His family believed that if a young woman was given their ancestral beads, she became spiritually tied to them. It wasn't romantic, it was a commitment to guide, support, and stay loyal to their family traditions. Senna was shocked. Amma, you never told me. Amma looked away. Because I didn't want anyone to know I was trapped in something I didn't understand. I wanted to leave, but once the beads were on, leaving meant breaking the bond. Quaim stepped forward. And you broke it anyway. Amma's breath caught. I left because I felt used. Because I felt like my choices didn't matter. Quaim's eyes darkened. And now you're paying the price. Senna stepped closer. What price? Amma owes you nothing. But Quaim laughed softly, bitterly. Amma knows the truth. She knows why I'm here. Amma felt her knees weaken. She sat slowly on the edge of her couch, her voice trembling. He's here because the beads were never just beads. They were a mark. A mark that connected me to something his family was hiding. Senna looked between them, confused. What were they hiding? Alma whispered, a secret about Quaim. A truth his family didn't want anyone to know. Quaim's expression hardened. Don't say it, Alma. But Alma had held that truth for too long. Quaim wasn't just choosing someone for a cultural bond. He was choosing someone to protect him. Senna shook her head. Protect him from what? Alma exhaled deeply. Quaim was in trouble, real trouble. His family believed that if he tied the beads on a woman, she would share part of his spiritual burden, shielding him from consequences. Senna gasped. You mean he gave you the beads so you would carry his problems? Alma nodded slowly, tears finally falling. Yes, he didn't want a partner. He wanted protection. Quaim stepped closer, his voice softer now. Alma, you don't understand. I was desperate. Alma looked up at him, broken. You made your desperation my responsibility. You tied me into your darkness. The room fell silent. The background music shifted into a soft, sorrowful African flute. Then Quaim whispered, Alma, the reason I'm here now is because something has happened. Alma wiped her face. What happened, Quaim? He swallowed hard, his voice shaking for the first time. My family found out that the bond broke, and they believe the consequences have returned. Senna asked, What consequences? Quaim's voice dropped. My father is sick, very sick. Doctors can't explain it. And they think it's because the spiritual shield Alma gave me is gone. Alma stared at him in disbelief. Quaim, I never agreed to carry that. I never agreed to be your shield. He looked at her desperately. I know, but they want you to come. They want you to restore the bond. The shock hit Alma like a wave. Restore? Quaim, I left because I felt powerless. You want me to return to the same place that broke me? Quaim's eyes softened. Alma, it's not just about me anymore. My father might not survive. Senna held Alma's hand tightly. Alma, you don't owe them your life. Alma looked torn, her heart pulled between fear and compassion. She knew what it felt like to lose someone. She knew what sickness did to families. But she also remembered the suffocation of Quaim's world. The camera zoomed slowly toward her face, tears gathering in her eyes. Soft heartbeat sound begins. Alma whispered, Quaim, if I come with you, will I ever be free again? Quaim didn't answer. His silence was the answer. Senna pulled Alma back gently. Alma, think about your life. Think about your freedom. Alma touched the beads at her waist, beads she had worn for years, beads she feared but also understood. She stood slowly, breathing hard. Quaim, I will come. But not for the bond, for your father. And after that, I am done. Quaim stared at her, stunned but relieved. As Alma gathered her things, the voiceover rose softly. Sometimes the truth we fear is the truth that frees us. And sometimes the beads we wear are not decorations, but stories we must finally face. The camera followed Alma as she stepped out of her apartment with Quaim and Senna by her side. But deep down, she knew this journey would open doors she was never prepared to open. And the truth waiting for her at Quaim's family home was a truth she never expected.